Well, I hate to be that guy, but I'm gonna be that guy. This is gonna be a truck video. Just another redneck in his truck with his sunglasses on like a douche talking to the camera. This is just a convenient time for me to film. So basically, I just want to get across, like, we will not save you money. We won't. And what I mean by that is, if you're gonna be doing fleet maintenance, right? Chances are a service like ours, which is mobile, right? We're a mobile service. We come right to you. You know, we can service your fleet while it's in the safety of your yard or your storage unit or wherever you keep your fleet. You know, I'll say that probably we're going to be just as, if not a little bit more expensive than your run-of-the-mill trailer shop. You know, whoever your regular guy is that you take your equipment to get serviced. So in that way, we're not going to save you money. But in another way, like if you're using our fleet services, we track all your maintenance. Everything is itemized. You know exactly what was done, when it was done, why it was done. All the while, it never left wherever you store your unit. And so whether you've got a landscaping trailer or a dump trailer, whatever it is, you know exactly where it is the entire time. If we're waiting on parts, like let's say you have a bent axle and you snap the spindle off the beam, the entire time that you're waiting for that axle to get delivered to us, and then for us to get that axle over to you for the install, that entire time, you know exactly where your trailer is. Your trailer hasn't left your property. And that's an advantage that, in my mind, that's worth paying for. And so it's like, you know, we're not gonna save you money there. But what we do save you, one, is the headache and the logistics of figuring it out. How much time, how much effort has to go into the logistics of you getting your guys, or in worst case scenario, you yourself taking your trailer to go get serviced? How much time do you spend on that? How much time has to go from you learning that there's something wrong with the trailer, from you learning that information, to then you swapping out your crew so that crew can keep going? They have to bring the trailer back to the shop. They have to swap into another trailer. They swap into that other trailer. Then they can go back out and finish the job. How many times does that roll into a job not getting done the same day? What does that cost you to have that trailer, that job not get done the same day? And so what we don't save you in the actual cost of the maintenance, we absolutely save you in the logistics, in the being current and up to date on your maintenance, and in the opportunity cost. Because if you're like us, you run a business, you're just like us, you know, there's costs, there's delays, there's all sorts of things. And the more that you can minimize that, the more uptime you have for your crews or for you to actually go out and do your job and make money. And so, like, you know, you might spend $1,000 or $1,500 a year on regular maintenance. And I mean, if you run a normal blue collar business, if you run, you know, a real boots on the ground, get your hands dirty business, you're a skilled laborer, chances are you can make that back in a day, 2 days, as opposed to having that one job that would have made you that money now get dragged out for a day or two, or sometimes longer with some of these shops. Is they'll sit there and they'll jack you around. You know, your trailer will sit on their lot. You'll call them back in a week and a half. They haven't even touched it. They ain't even ordered your parts because they're working on somebody else's unit. So there's a couple advantages to using our services. You know, I'm not gonna sit here and sell you a bridge. We might be a little more expensive, and that's just the way it is. You know, we are a mobile service. We bring an entire shop on wheels to your lot, to your storage facility, all those sorts of things. So, you know, we might not be the cheapest game in town, but that's not my game. My game isn't to race to the bottom, right? That's not the game I want to play. What I want to do is I want to provide a killer service, maximum convenience, maximum uptime for our customers. And if I can do that, then I've done my job well. So anyways, just wanted to kind of pop in and talk to y'all. You know, this is just kind of something that I've had on my mind. You know, we've got, you know, a handful of fleet customers that use us, you know, construction guys, landscapers, etc. And you know what I'll probably have to do, actually, I'll have to make a case study out of one of them, or, you know, maybe a couple, and kind of show you, like, hey, there is massive upside to having regular fleet maintenance with one business that manages your entire fleet, that can go through line by line and say, hey, this trailer back on this time had X services done. Yeah, anyways, basically, I'll have to get on here and maybe take you guys through a case study of one of our fleet clients, because it's really incredible. You know, I think anecdotally, just kind of off the top of my head, the first year that he was with us, his trailers were pretty broke down. And that's because the extra barrier to entry to getting your problems solved at a traditional shop where you have to take your entire fleet to it, well, that extra barrier to entry is going to mean that you're not going to want to do it. And if you don't want to do it, you're probably not going to do it. So that first year was more expensive. You know, I won't even lie to you. The first year we had to go in and rectify all of the problems that had built up over years and years that hadn't been addressed. You know, things like bent axles, things like running gear, and by that I mean, like, you know, your equalizers and shackles and leaf springs and whatnot. You know, go through and replace all the parts that were extremely worn, replace the parts that they're still functioning now, but give it a month. And so, you know, the first year he spent more money, we spent way more time there, and you know, inevitably there were things that needed addressing throughout that subsequent year. Now, where you reaped the benefits were on year 2, because on year 2 his maintenance costs went way down. And I'll have to pull up some hard numbers. Maybe I'll post that in another video. But, you know, year 2, his maintenance costs plummeted. And then throughout year 2, we didn't see him. And that's a good thing, right? Like, don't get me wrong, I want to take your money, but I also don't, you know, if I do my job correctly and we do that yearly service, we won't see you. And you know, that's my goal. That's my job. I want to make it so that I can do a one and done. And then when I show up for the next year, I can just constantly be ahead of the game, always on the ball. Make sure that we don't have to see you guys on a regular basis. So anyhow, I guess maybe that's something that y'all can look forward to. You know, maybe as I sit in traffic in the days to come, doing other jobs and more fleet maintenance, maybe I'll pop on, make some more videos. But for sure, going to have to make something that's more than just anecdotal evidence or anecdotal experiences for fleet services, but actually a good case study to really show, you know, how much is saved in the long term. And I don't know the inner workings of the particular customer I'm thinking of. I don't know the inner workings of their business and their P&L statements and all that stuff, but you know, therefore I can't really quantify the opportunity costs that were saved in not having to have their trailers down throughout the year. But I imagine, just based off of the reduction in appointments throughout the year, that there was a massive saving. So, or a massive upside financially. So, anyways, my name is PJ, Fort Worth Trailer Supply. You know, if you like the content, like what we're doing, you know, shoot us a subscription, like, comment, all that stuff. If you've got questions about fleet service, you know, hey, hit us up. We're in the DFW area. All we do is RVs and trailers. That is all that we do. So if you're taking your stuff to a general mechanic who can work on a trailer, maybe think about switching. You know, when you're in the industry like we are, when, you know, our business is sitting there going to things like the NATM, the National Association of Trailer Manufacturers, you know, we're going to these shows, we're in the industry. This is what we eat, sleep, and breathe. So if you want somebody that's not just a general mechanic that can turn a wrench, but somebody that actually knows trailers, knows RVs, everything from, you know, in RVs, appliances, and warranty work, insurance, all that sort of stuff. And then on the trailer side, you know, welding, axles, brakes, bearings, suspension, all that stuff. So, you know, if you want something that's a little more specialized, give us a ring. If not, stay tuned for some more content. You know, hopefully we can be a little more on the ball. I'm not really one for the whole social media game, but I understand that it's important, and you know, I think we've got some good information to get out to y'all. So anyways, thanks for watching.